9 places, 9 discoveries, everyone still unresolved. A jungle temple erased from history for 800 years. A hill that might rewrite when civilization began, or might just be a hill. A cave painting older than the last ice age. Scientists have studied every site for decades. The deeper the research goes, the less settled the answers become. Number 9. The island where the Stone Age never ended. Off the west coast of Sumatra, separated from the mainland by open ocean, sits an island most of the world has never heard of, Nias. For most of human history, building in massive stone was the norm. Then it stopped, almost everywhere, replaced by other materials, other methods, other ways of marking status and memory. On Nias, it never stopped. Villages here are still built around towering wooden chiefs' houses, ringed by standing stones, some raised centuries ago, some raised within living memory. Young men still train for a ritual called Hombo Batu, stone jumping, clearing a 2-meter stone wall that once carried sharpened bamboo along its top. The ritual descends directly from a time when Nias villages fortified themselves against each other, and warriors trained to leap enemy defenses in the middle of a raid. Researchers who study megalithic cultures worldwide keep returning to the same question about Nias. Every other stone-raising society on Earth eventually abandoned the practice. Egypt moved on. Britain moved on. Easter Island moved on. Nias did not. Geographic isolation explains part of it. Dutch colonial control did not reach the island until 1914, centuries after it had reached most of the rest of Indonesia. But isolation alone does not fully explain why a warrior culture built around stone defense, memory, and initiation kept raising new megaliths well into the 20th century, long after the wars that originally demanded them had ended. So the question researchers keep circling back to is simple. What exactly kept this island building long after every comparable culture on Earth had stopped? Number 8. The capital archaeologists cannot fully find. East Java, the Trowulan region. On the surface, nothing extraordinary. Rice fields, village roads, ordinary countryside stretching toward the mountains. Dig almost anywhere across it, and brickwork appears. In the 14th century, a court poet named Mpu Prapansa wrote a poem called the Nagarakretagama, describing the capital of the Majapahit Empire in vivid detail. Palaces, canals, marketplaces, a royal compound ringed by a high red brick wall entered through a north gate of decorated iron. At its height, Majapahit controlled territory stretching from Sumatra to New Guinea, the largest state Southeast Asia has ever produced. And yet, after more than a century of excavation at Trowulan, archaeologists have never conclusively located the royal palace the poem describes. Surveys have mapped tens of thousands of ancient wells across the region, dense enough to estimate roughly where the population center once stood. But estimates of the capital's total size disagree by a staggering margin. Some researchers calculate the settled area at around 30 square kilometers. Others, building on a 1920s survey by Dutch architect Henry Maclean Pont, have argued for a sprawling urban zone closer to 100 square kilometers, home to as many as 200,000 people. The brick itself is part of the problem. Majapahit builders worked almost exclusively in fired red brick rather than stone, and in a tropical climate with seasonal monsoons, unmaintained brick collapses within a few centuries. Add a modern village built directly on top of the ruins, house by house, over hundreds of years, and the result is a capital city that scholars can prove existed, describe in poetic detail, and still cannot fully map. What has surfaced during a century of digging is, by every measure, only a fragment. How much of the rest still sits beneath the houses and fields around it is a question nobody has closed. Number 7. The temple complex larger than Borobudur. Most people who have heard of Indonesian temple architecture know Borobudur. almost nobody has heard of the site 12 times its size. Along the Batanghari River, in Sumatra, sits Muaro Jambi, a Buddhist temple complex spanning nearly 4,000 hectares, roughly 12 square kilometers of brick foundations, canals, and mounds stretching more than 7 kilometers along the riverbank. Archaeologists date its origins to the 7th century, flourishing under the Srivijaya and later the Malayu kingdoms as a maritime trading power with deep ties to Buddhist scholarship across Asia. More than 80 individual temple structures have been identified across the site. As of the most recent surveys, only around 10 have been fully excavated and restored. Inscriptions found at Muaro Jambi, along with references in manuscripts from Nalanda in India and monastic records from Tibet, suggest the complex functioned as a center of Buddhist learning on a scale that drew monks from across the region, comparable to Nalanda itself. For a period spanning several centuries, this stretch of Sumatran riverbank may have been one of the most important intellectual centers in the Buddhist world, and most of it has never been formally excavated. The site was rediscovered by colonial surveyors in 1824, buried under jungle for over 500 years before that. Restoration only began in earnest in the 2000s. As recently as late 2025, Indonesian heritage officials were still pushing for stronger legal protection and greater international recognition for the site. Every unexcavated mound at Muaro Jambi is a question mark. Somewhere beneath them may be manuscripts, teaching records, or evidence that could reshape how historians understand Buddhist learning across the ancient world. Nobody has looked yet. Number 6. The skull that proved humans evolved. In 1891, on the banks of the Solo River near the village of Trinil in Java, a Dutch military physician named Eugène Dubois found a thick fossilized piece of skull. Dubois had come to the Dutch East Indies specifically to search for what scientists at the time called the missing link, physical proof connecting apes to modern humans. Most of his contemporaries considered the search close to hopeless. Within a year of the skull, Dubois' team recovered a thigh bone nearby, remarkably human in shape, suggesting whatever this creature was, it walked upright. He named it Pithecanthropus erectus, the upright ape man. Later reclassified as Homo erectus, it became the first physical evidence that human evolution had actually happened in the way Darwin's theory predicted, and the discovery ignited controversy that lasted decades. Further excavations at nearby Sangiran through the 1930s and beyond uncovered dozens more specimens. Today, the Sangiran early man site has produced roughly half of all known Homo erectus fossils on Earth, evidence of continuous human presence spanning more than 1 million years in a single region of central Java. For over a century, the original Trinil fossils sat in the Netherlands, studied by generations of European researchers, while the site of their discovery remained thousands of miles away. That is changing now. As of 2025, Indonesian officials have been in active negotiations for the fossil's full repatriation. What remains open is not whether Homo erectus existed here. That much is settled. What remains open is how much more of the story is still buried beneath the same stretch of Java, and how many more discoveries this size are still waiting in ground nobody has surveyed. Anyway, ask yourself honestly, before scrolling to the comments. Out of these first 4, which one would you have staked your reputation on if you were the researcher standing there holding the evidence? Most of what counts as settled science started exactly this way, with one person, one bone, and a room full of skeptics. Number 5. The monument that vanished for 800 years. Central Java, surrounded by rice fields and volcanic hills, stands the largest Buddhist monument on the planet, Borobudur. Built during the 8th and 9th centuries under the Sailendra dynasty, the structure rises in 9-stepped platforms, decorated with more than 2,600 carved relief panels and hundreds of Buddha statues. An estimated 2 million blocks of volcanic andesite fitted together, with no mortar at all. Political and religious power shifted eastward across Java, and Borobudur was abandoned. Eruptions from nearby Mount Merapi buried its lower levels in ash. Jungle closed over what remained. For roughly 800 years, the largest Buddhist monument on Earth existed on no official record at all. By the time Thomas Stamford Raffles, then serving as the British Lieutenant Governor of Java, heard local rumors of a massive hidden monument in 1814, it took his engineer, H.C. Cornelius, and around 200 workers 2 full months just to clear the vegetation and ash, enough to reveal the structure's true scale. That is strange enough on its own. A structure the height of a modern 6-story building, covering an area comparable to 2.5 football fields, fading from written memory without a single surviving account, explaining why. But the detail that still unsettles historians sits beneath the visible structure itself. Buried under the monument's current base is an original foundation containing 160 relief panels, deliberately encased in additional stone during construction, hidden from view by the very builders who carved them. The panels depict scenes considered too explicit or too morally instructive to remain on public display. The builders hid part of their own monument from the people who would worship there. Why, and from whom, is still debated. Number 4. The eruption that almost ended humanity. North Sumatra, a vast lake, calm and blue, ringed by mountains, with an island nearly the size of Singapore sitting in the middle of it. Lake Toba is the collapsed remnant of a supervolcano, the site of what researchers classify as the largest eruption on Earth in the past 28 million years. Roughly 74,000 years ago, the eruption ejected an estimated 1,700 cubic miles of rock, ash, and gas into the atmosphere. Ash from Toba has been found in sediment layers as far away as India, and researchers have traced deposits reaching sites nearly 5,000 miles from the volcano itself. In the 1990s, geneticists noticed something strange. Human DNA diversity worldwide was unusually low for a species this old and this widespread. That observation gave rise to what became known as the Toba catastrophe theory, the idea that the eruption triggered a volcanic winter severe enough to collapse the global human population down to somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 individuals, an evolutionary bottleneck that nearly ended the species. For years, that theory held. It no longer does, cleanly. Recent archaeological work in India has found human tool sites both above and below the Toba ash layer, showing continuous occupation and unchanged behavior straight through the eruption. Updated climate models suggest the cooling effect was less severe and far less globally uniform than early researchers assumed. Genetic studies have struggled to pin the population bottleneck to Toba's exact time frame at all. The eruption itself is not in question. It happened, and it was immense. What is now genuinely unsettled is whether it did what an entire generation of scientists believed it did. Number 3. The human species nobody expected to find. On the island of Flores, in a limestone cave called Liang Bua, a joint Australian-Indonesian research team led by archaeologist Mike Morwood made one of the strangest discoveries in the history of human evolution. In 2003, excavators uncovered the partial skeleton of an adult female, barely a meter tall, with a brain roughly 1/3 the size of a modern human's. Continued excavation eventually recovered remains from more than a dozen individuals. The species was formally named Homo floresiensis. Almost immediately, the press nicknamed it something else: the Hobbit. The scientific debate that followed grew contentious fast. Some researchers argued this was a genuine separate branch of the human family tree, isolated on Flores long enough to evolve into a distinct small-bodied species. Others insisted the remains belonged to a modern human with a growth disorder, and that no new species existed at all. The original dating made the story stranger still. Initial estimates suggested Homo floresiensis survived on Flores until as recently as 12,000 years ago, meaning this radically different human species could have overlapped with modern Homo sapiens for tens of thousands of years on the same small island. Renewed excavations between 2007 and 2014, led by Smithsonian researcher Matt Tocheri, alongside the original team, revised that timeline substantially. New stratigraphic analysis pushed the population's disappearance back to somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 years ago, thousands of years earlier than first believed. The revision did not close the case. It shifted the mystery. Whether Homo floresiensis ever crossed paths with the first modern humans to reach the islands of Southeast Asia remains an open question. Number 2. The oldest story ever painted. In the limestone karst region of Maros Pangkep, South Sulawesi, sits a cave called Leang Karampuang. Painted on its wall is a scene of 3 human-like forms interacting with a large Sulawesi warty pig, one of them reaching toward its face, another positioned directly above it, upside down. In 2024, a research team from Griffith University and Indonesia's National Research and Innovation Agency, led by archaeologist Adi Agus Octaviana and geochronologist Adam Brum, used a laser-based uranium dating technique to establish the painting's minimum age, 51,200 years old. That makes it the oldest known surviving example of figurative art on Earth, and the oldest known narrative scene, predating every cave painting previously discovered in Europe by tens of thousands of years. The same team redated a separate hunting scene at nearby Liang Bulu Sipong 4, previously estimated at roughly 44,000 years old. The new method pushed that painting's age back as well, to at least 48,000 years. What makes the Karampuang image unusual is not simply its age, it is what it depicts. Brum's team describes the figures interacting with the pig as therianthropes, part human, part animal beings, blending human posture with what may be animal features. Nobody who painted this scene left any explanation behind. No accompanying text. No oral tradition passed down intact across 51,000 years to say what the figures meant. Humanity has been telling stories for far longer than anyone assumed. The physical proof of it now sits on a cave wall in Sulawesi. What the story actually was is a question the paint itself cannot answer. Number 1. The mountain that might rewrite human history. West Java, a couple of hours from Jakarta, stands a hill called Gunung Padang. From a distance, it looks unremarkable, a stepped rise toward the summit of a dormant volcano. Up close, the hill reveals itself as something else entirely. Thousands of flat basalt columns, packed tightly together, form 5 terraces connected by stone stairways, covering more than 15 hectares, the largest known megalithic structure in Southeast Asia. Beginning in 2011, a research team led by Indonesian geologist Danny Hilman Natawijaya conducted more than a decade of ground-penetrating radar surveys and core drilling beneath the visible terraces. In October 2023, the team published their conclusions in the peer-reviewed journal Archaeological Prospection. Beneath the surface layers, they argued, sat older man-made construction phases, the deepest of which they dated to as far back as 25,000 years, based on radiocarbon dating of soil found in the core samples. If accurate, that would place the oldest layer of Gunung Padang thousands of years before the pyramids of Giza, before Stonehenge, before agriculture itself. The backlash arrived almost immediately. Geophysicists and archaeologists worldwide raised the same core objection. Radiocarbon dating soil proves the soil is old. It does not prove humans shaped it. The core samples showed no artifacts, no tools, no clear evidence of intentional construction at the deepest layers, only natural sediment that could have settled there without any human involvement at all. By March 2024, the journal formally retracted the paper, citing a major unaddressed error in how the dating had been applied and interpreted. Natawijaja and his co-authors publicly disagreed with the retraction and continue to stand behind their original findings. For one side of this argument, the retraction settled the matter. A natural hill, misread by well-meaning researchers chasing a conclusion the data never supported. For the other side, a retraction is not the same as disproof. The core samples still exist. The layers in the ground have not moved. And nobody, on either side of this argument, has drilled deep enough to make the disagreement go away. 9 places. 9 discoveries scientists have studied for decades, sometimes centuries, and still cannot fully close the file on. A hill that may or may not be older than the pyramids. A cave painting nobody can fully explain. A capital city half of which has never been found. The mountain at Gunung Padang has not moved since the retraction. Neither has the argument. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more ancient mysteries and impossible discoveries.